we're happy to talk to you up front when you have an initial problem and get an idea of what your situation is and whether or not you actually need our help. And there are many times I've told people, you don't need me, you can take care of that on your own. And I'm happy to meet with people, talk with them, explain what the process is if they're dealing with an estate, get an idea of what might be involved with that particular estate, give them some guidance on things they need to look for and things they need to do. If then it's determined that they do need to work with me, and we're probably going to need to work with an attorney as well. Our fees are based on hourly. Our inventory is our time. That's the only thing we have to charge for. Typically up front, we will give you an idea of what it looks like the total will be. And that can be a pretty wide range. There are a lot of estates that I've dealt with over my years that were $1,500 to $2,000. The last one I'm working on right now is $95,000. It was there were five private companies. They all had to be valued. It was a large enough estate. It required the preparation of a federal estate tax return, which is fairly rare these days. But again, most professionals will be happy to give you some free advice up front if you explain the situation to them, and they'll give you some guidance on how you need to proceed.
No way, we never give free advice, do we, guys? Oh, Linda, no, she had her hand up to tell me, Linda, your hand's still up. I don't know if you can put it down or not. Sorry, Linda. Oh, wait, I can do it on my end. There you go. I did it. Okay, good. I wasn't sure if she's still. No, that was from her telling me that she can hear us. Right.
Sorry, I inserted a joke in there. But
oh, I didn't.
I just was hoping Linda's arm wasn't getting that tired.
Oh. Linda, she's getting a workout.
Samantha will tell you I'm the king of dad jokes, and particularly in the office. They get bonuses for laughing at my jokes. So.
Nice.
Pricing. I guess I'm going to start by just, first of all, cautioning you to not use price as the sole measurement of whether this is someone that you want to work with or not. And I tell you that because my prices are probably going to be higher than somebody that's only been in the field 1 or 2 years. I've got lots of experience, but that also means I can probably cut to the chase with some things. To say it a little different, like the value you're going to get out of me on an employment law question is not going to be as great as the value you're going to get out of one of my colleagues who specializes or concentrates their practice on that area. With all that said, just to get to the chase, I have a robust intake team. Samantha's a member of my team. There's no charge to talk with them, so they typically will be the ones that will take your initial inquiry with the office. They can walk you through our processes, and also just kind of see if we're going to be a good fit for you or you're a good fit for us, and we'll certainly let you know if that's not something we do. We'll give you a referral to one of our colleagues that is a better fit for you. Once you schedule, I do charge a consult fee of $395 when we work together. What we do as a process, we ask you to get some information to me beforehand through a questionnaire. I then spend some time with that information so that I can identify issues before you even get to the office. So when you're meeting with me, we're focusing on your goals. Of course, then I'm going to identify some of the issues that I have noticed with the plan at the end for me to have a project for you. And if you hire me for the project, that consult fee just goes right on to the project price. It's not a separate charge. That's a down payment basically on the project. Like Miranda and I think the rest of the group here, I charge 95% of what I do on a flat charge because, as Miranda said, I want you to feel like you can call me or call my office at any time with questions as we're working through the scope of your project. I never want you to be sitting there saying, I really don't want to call Jeff because I don't want another bill, even though this question is very important to me. So that's why we do everything on a flat fee basis. As far as the actual cost, it really depends on what we're doing. If we're just kind of getting an estate plan in place to appoint your team, that's obviously not going to be as expensive as if you're trying to protect your farm or your house, or trying to protect cash assets, or we're trying to get Medicaid benefits or VA benefits for you. That requires us to kind of be not only some planning, but also dealing with the bureaucracies on your behalf. So those are kind of time consuming. So it really kind of depends as far as the range. I'll just wrap up just saying, typically the value of my services pay for themselves. If you are, if we're working together and we've secured Medicaid, that's kind of long-term care insurance for life, and my thousands, a few thousands at the beginning is going to pay for themselves, usually within a month or two of services.
Good. So all of them made some really good points. Oh, Denise, go ahead.
Well, first of all, I love you both fine.
Oh.
Question. I have a friend whose mother, her health is failing very quickly, and she lives in Tennessee. Now, is that something that any of you could help with in Tennessee, or do they need to look for someone there?
They'll need an attorney licensed in Tennessee that can represent Tennessee clients. You're not licensed in Tennessee, are you? And neither am I. But if you call my office, I typically, because I'm a part of a national organization of elder law attorneys that we get together a couple times a year, I typically know somebody in every state. There's a few that I don't, and particularly I know a few folks in Tennessee. So if you ever call my office, we can get you connected with them.
Google, because you don't know. And again, like Lisa tries so hard to make sure elder care is taken care of, professionally, and she vets people, and I would have no idea. But I mean, she owns a bunch of land down there, and I know she's got oil on the land, and she's got 6 kids, and there's just a lot of business, and her health is just going downhill. And I keep telling them they need to get someone in there that can help them, because to me this is going to be a big mess if something happens. And so yeah, I was just wondering if any of you were.
Not there, but I'm sure Miranda probably has contacts as well that you could get them connected with.
For our online audience, the question was about a professional in another state. And I think we all have connections in other states that we can make referrals to. We do on a regular basis, whether it's regular real estate or downsizing or the whole thing. So, yeah. Any other questions online or in person? Not that it matters to the people in the room or the people who are already online, but I finally got us connected on YouTube, so yay. All right, so the next question, and we get this a lot. Oh, one point I wanted to make real quick before we move on to question number 4. Sarah and I, we offer free consultation to either downsizing and real estate, or just the real estate, and I'm heading to one right after this, but we come to your house with a prepared binder like this that has information about your property, our downsizing services, and then we have the consultation first, because just like our panelists, we have to know the scope of the project. So, all right. So the next question is, when is the best time to begin making plans? And I'm just going to add to that, if you've already made plans, how frequently should we revisit those and just reevaluate? Go ahead.
Okay. Well, so a few things there. Keep in mind, as you age, your circumstances are going to change. So when we talk about making plans, when you're in your 20s and 30s, working with somebody like Miranda or I, your plans are probably going to be more of what happens if something happens to us and who are going to take care of our kids, and planning for that. So when you say when, obviously right there, I'm telling you in your 20s or 30s. If we're thinking more of, well, how about if I'm concerned about protecting assets from the cost of long-term care, or making sure that my kids are not going to squander their inheritance, or protecting things from that spouse that, yeah, he married her, and oh gosh, those types of things, well, then, that's probably in your 50s, 60s, you want to start.
You will never pay more for the prices or for the services that you arrange with the funeral home at the time that you paid for them. The only thing that you will pay more for are outside services. So when people make arrangements, as we talked about Crown Hill, is we don't know what Crown Hill's opening and closing charge on a grave will be 10 years from now or 15 years from now. So you can set aside funds in that trust to pay toward that opening and closing, but ultimately there may be a little extra on top of it. What happens to, yes? Oh, the trusts in Indiana, they're irrevocable trusts. So when you establish those, when you put the money in the, pay the funeral home, it doesn't go in my pocket or the checking account of the business. It goes into an irrevocable funeral trust. That protects you in several ways. Number one, it protects you if David goes crazy, goes to Las Vegas, and business goes under, your money is set aside and it's in a trust fund. Number two, if you decide to change funeral homes, whether it's because you moved to southern Indiana or you got tired of this weather, the great weather now, but the winter weather, and you decide to move to a warmer climate, South Carolina, Florida, wherever, that irrevocable trust stays in place, and you can change the named funeral home beneficiary to another one. We will make recommendations for you because, as we talked about earlier, we know of funeral homes and good funeral homes all over the country, and when we don't, we can research it and pay for it in advance, and you're locking in prices. Oh, sir. Yes, sir.
All right, say, would a life insurance policy cover your costs then? I mean, if you've got enough in your insurance.
Good question. Yes, I mean, it will pay toward it, but it doesn't lock in the prices. So if you have a life insurance policy, you can take an assignment on that life insurance policy, or someone can, the beneficiary can, at the time of your death. And our legal friends here, our attorneys, can speak better to that than I can. But the difference is when you do it with a funeral home and you put it in a trust, you're locking in the prices. Those prices will never go up. The life insurance policy, the prices of the funeral home will continue to go up through the years, and the life insurance policy proceeds will pay toward that funeral expense. So it's your choice.
Okay. Thank you.
So the answer, of course, varies. If anyone who's 18 years or older and competent should have advance directives in place to direct who's going to take care of their finances and their health care if they're, for some reason, not competent. So you could have COVID and be in the hospital for a few weeks on a ventilator, and you want to come back and know that somebody has paid your bills. You need to be able to designate someone who can do that and have that authority. So it's not just looking at people who have dementia, they're never going to regain their competence. Any of us can have something happen where we, for whatever reason, can't take care of those things. Wills are helpful to have in place if you want some type of distribution that goes beyond what the statute says. So there is a statute that says who gets what if you die without a will, and you have assets that go through the probate process. If you want something different from that, a will can help. A will isn't going to help you bypass probate. So once you get to the point where you have significant assets, or you are married, you have kids, and you want to start putting really concrete distribution schemes in place, that's time to talk again about your planning to see if a will or a trust are appropriate for you. As you get to 65 and older, you retire, maybe you get diagnosed with Parkinson's or MS or something that's going to require care in the future. Now it's time to start talking about long-term care pre-planning because there are some strategies that may be available to you to help preserve assets if you get ahead of it at least 5 years ahead of needing that care in the future. There's never it's always a good time to do crisis Medicaid planning if you need care now. So if you need nursing home care or in-home care today, and you have any assets at all, that's probably a good time to talk to an attorney. Sometimes there are situations where even if you plan on spending all your money until there's nothing left, you may still need to not do that. Because if you've given assets away in the 5 years before you apply for Medicaid, barring a couple of exceptions, there may be a period of time where Medicaid is not going to cover your care after you've been approved. You need to make sure there are funds set aside in a way that it doesn't count as an asset to cover that private pay period. Sorry, that's okay. So even for people who think even for people who think they're just going to spend their assets until there's nothing left, there may be situations where you just want to talk to somebody and make sure that that's a good plan for your situation.
I think probably to touch on both of Jeff's and Amanda's points, once you're an adult, you need to have plans. You need to monitor those plans, and you need to update those plans as circumstances change in your life. The plans that you need when you're 20 years old and in college are different than the plans that you need when you're 35 years old and you have 4 children. Those are different than when you're 65 years old and all of your children are out. So it's just part of being a responsible adult. You need to have plans in place to address your life circumstances, and you need to monitor them as your life proceeds, because events occur and changes happen. And a good plan drafted at one point may be a terrible plan 2 years later. So today is when you need to have your plan in place if you're an adult, and you need to monitor it as you proceed through life.
We have a question, Sue.
Miranda, what was was there a term for the first thing you talked about as far as like if you're 18 and you go in hospital? Is it a POA or is it something else?
So I call it your advanced directives, which is going to take care of your financial, your healthcare power of attorney, a HIPAA release, talking about end-of-life decisions. Generally, advanced directives are what attorneys refer to for those things. And I recommend that you review your documents yearly at tax time. So put your documents with your tax paperwork, pull it out, check it, make sure you still like all the people that you've listed in your will or your trust. Everybody's still competent and they can handle those things.
And the advanced directive law changed significantly last summer, so if you haven't had your advanced directives looked at in a while, see one of us to make sure they're updated.
I got 2 questions. Question 1, Medicare, A, B, and C, or all the alphabet, whatever. This ad I responded to, it was a TV ad. I got slammed by phone calls trying to sell me add-ons for Medicare. Responding to, the extras. I know your plan A is just catastrophic and all that. Everybody gets that. Then the add-ons B on down. Why are people permitted to do that? And then my second question is, I saw an ad last night on free TV. I got rid of all the cable stuff because it's crazy on that too. But last night I saw an ad I've never seen before about people. There's a guy who says he's been convicted of stealing house titles. You heard anything about that?
First of all, Phil, stop watching TV late at night. I'm kidding.
This is on daily. I mean, not at night either. So
I'm kidding. So Phil responded to an ad. I'm telling the online audience so you can hear. And so I'm sorry, we had a little bit of a lag there online. Our internet is really slow today. So he saw some commercials online and responded to them and got hit up by a whole bunch of people trying to sell him Medicare add-on plans. And he wanted to know why. You probably need to go online and put yourself on the do not call list now at this point.
already am.
Oh, good. Okay. But, because you responded, it gave them permission to call you. Yeah. And then the other one was about the, stealing house titles. Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of, real estate fraud. We hear about wire fraud, all
This
kinds of
company's
things.
trying to sell you a protection, a quote, protection plan that would circumvent
Denise is
that.
shaking her head. Let's ask the title company. Denise?
You know, in today's world, there's so much fraud that, you know, we have to do all kinds of things. I don't know how someone can steal it. You know, it is recorded with the county. So I don't know what
Yeah.
method they could use, and I think that's just.
Unless they forge signatures and notaries and all kinds of other
And
things.
I think that, you know, the insurance on that, it's just like getting insurance, you know, people are always looking for a way to trick you to buy things. I would say that's what that is. I mean, that the likelihood of a title being stolen, you know, I just don't know how that can even happen.
Busting.
You know, because like I said, it's recorded at the county and, I mean, they would have to falsify every part of it and I just don't see, but again, you know, there's companies that are willing to take that risk, but you know, to make a company that would insure that makes me think that, you know, it's cost effective for them.
Well, the ad was presented that, say, I buy a house, this guy goes in and surreptitiously, behind the scenes, say you're gonna sell your house, but you don't own your house anymore, and so this person that stole the title to your house sells your house out from underneath. That's what it was a scare tactic. I heard this thing last night, I said, what the heck is this about? I've never seen this ad before.
Yeah.
And there's this guy out there that starts the whole situation, that, he's a convicted and did time and all that, and now he's coming out and telling, quote, his story. And I thought,
Making money off his felonious,
What is this about?
He's still a fraud, it sounds like, trying to get.
I used to murder people and now
I've never heard of it.
I don't murder people. I keep you from being murdered. I mean, I don't know.
I don't respond to TV stuff anyway, but I thought,
Yeah.
why, and I know people do.
Yeah, and it's good that you're here and you're asking the questions here because that's exactly what these events are about, is informational and education to the attendees. And so Jeff wanted to say something about that stolen title.
First comment I wanted to make is this bodes well into reminding everybody that if you're going to sell your house, even if, and I definitely recommend you get an agent, but if you think you're going to try to avoid an agent, you got to get a title company involved to handle that sale so that there aren't these issues. The other comment I just make there is, I'm going through all the legal, how could that happen? It would be extremely difficult. I think if you were going to buy an insurance policy, what that's insuring you against is maybe the attorney's fees to get that fraudulent chain of titles set aside, because really the only way that someone could go behind your back is to basically take a warranty deed and sign it fraudulently. That's really it.
Yeah.
I think people get scared because there are laws in place that if you are basically a purchaser with no knowledge of the seller not having title to the property, then suddenly that could be their argument saying, well, we shouldn't be out either. But that's all litigation based. So I guess what I'm trying to say, it's just be very, very hard for somebody to go behind your back and take the title to your property. I've seen just the opposite. There's also a company out there that will send you regular reports. They go to the recorder and send you a report on making sure you still have title to your property.
That you could get on your own, by
that
the
you
way.
can get on your own for a few dollars, really, online, and they'll charge you $250, $300.
That's,
yeah.
So that was a disclaimer part of that last night, I think.
Or you could just call the recorder's office and ask them if you're still the owner of your property. For part A, part B, part C, find an agent who can help you figure out what the best supplement is for you. Find a reputable agent.
That was
Keep going down
one of the other
The
questions
different
too.
options.
And if we keep going in this rabbit hole, I don't want to take up much stuff, but I'm also thinking, if you're not getting your property tax bill suddenly, that might be a problem indicator too. Don't think you're getting a free ride all of a sudden. That may mean something's wrong with the title.
Yeah. Because they're definitely gonna collect property.
They're definitely gonna collect property
Yeah.
tax.
The entire amount of time that I've been in this industry, we have never come across that situation. We've had a lot of interesting things where people go to sell their property and they have been mowing and maintaining the lot next to their property for 37 years and find out they never owned it. It wasn't theirs to begin with. And they just were told by the sellers, oh yeah, that's all your property. But it wasn't, and they maintain it. Now, there's small things like that, but that was just like, an error between the buyer and the seller, but not legal. So we have never had that happen. Someone has actually, a lot of interesting, weird things, but not that.
So in terms of Medicare, Medicaid, Medicare supplemental plans, I believe next month is actually about how to afford senior care and things like that. And if we don't have a Medicare specialist on that panel, we can definitely connect you to somebody, or anybody on this panel could probably too.
I was just going to mention, rather than rely on TV ads and faceless corporations, I usually recommend talking to somebody local. I'm a big proponent of that throughout. I work with local banks, and I encourage my families to work with local banks because they're easier to deal with than some of the big corporate banks. Because an agent, a face-to-face person, something goes, they want to do right by you, because if something goes wrong, they don't want that on their reputation. So talk to somebody locally. They can point you to what makes the most sense. There's pros and cons to the Medicare Advantage plans. And I personally think that there's oversold, but that doesn't mean that that's the wrong thing for you. An agent can kind of give you a good agent can lay out for you, should you have an Advantage plan or not.
Yep. Any other questions on that topic? The actual question was, when is the best time to start planning? Y'all answer that? Does anybody else have anything?
Today.
Okay, yeah, today. If you are over 18, today. Yeah, and get it reevaluated, get your plans reevaluated annually. Okay, so this is something that we get asked a lot. There's so many moving parts to getting your life organized in terms of legacy planning and estate planning and that sort of thing, downsizing. Where should I start? Who should I call first?
Well, you've got the mic.
Gosh, I mean, who do you call? I mean, I think that is a challenge for a lot of families, and I know when we're working with folks, we try to stay cognizant of that. When we're trying to secure Medicaid benefits for your loved one, I know that going out and getting a copy of the bank statement and getting copies of Social Security cards and so on, that's something else on your task list. And that same day, you also need to talk to the facility about the care that your mom's getting. And Jeff's told me to go prepay the funeral, so I got to call David and find a time to meet with him and all those things. So I guess what I'll say is start planning earlier than in a crisis. Give a gift to your family and do as much as you can ahead of time so that when there is a crisis, we don't have these folks that are just stretched so thin, because really all five of us up here, you could start with all 5 of us up here, because I'm sure, especially if there's a crisis, there's mom's house that suddenly is empty and mom doesn't have a lot of cash to maintain that thing, and we really need to start getting that sold. There's tax issues with now, what do we need to take money out of the IRA? If we do, what's that look like? Is there medical expense deductions and so on? Do I have authority to be able to do things for mom? And Medicaid planning and VA pension planning, and how do I get benefits to make sure that she's not completely destitute? And I already mentioned I need to prearrange mom's funeral, so I said you could start with any of this.
You could also start with any of our sponsors too. We've got Dave, who helps people find the right communities. We've got several communities, title company. So yeah, anybody in the room, I think you could start with. The senior industry is a pretty small industry, and we kind of talk a lot. I had a thought, and I always try to say this on this topic because we actually come across this a lot. A power of attorney dies when the person dies, right? Typically, are there any exceptions?
So the healthcare power of attorney can have a period of time where it continues to be in effect after you pass, so that somebody can gather the medical records in case there is a potential wrongful death. But if you go through the probate process, then you'll have a personal representative in place who could also do that.
That's relevant to you.
I'm surrounded by attorneys here, so correct me if I go wrong here, but the healthcare power of attorney law changed a few years ago that it did not survive death, and now there can be I don't know what you would call it in their terms in there, that it will survive death so that that designated person can make the funeral decisions.
Yes.
And if they don't, then you run into family problems where the two sons want dad to be cremated and the daughter does not. Because in Indiana, correct me again, the deceased has no rights. The rights go to the legal next of kin. And that's where the problems come in, is that if you haven't got your planning, if you haven't done your planning, as we've all discussed, then you can run into problems with some family dissension. Even with families that get along and have gotten along great through the years, they can have opinions about things after death that can be very difficult. That's one thing that I forgot to add to when you make funeral arrangements in advance. Just because you have a funeral prearrangement and it's paid for doesn't mean that it will be implemented, because the legal next of kin can change that because the deceased has no rights. There is now a funeral planning declaration called the funeral planning declaration. If you do pre-fund, that you can ask the funeral home, you want to complete that. And you complete that, and it says that these plans will be fulfilled upon my death. There will be no changes in it. Had a few years ago, and the lady had prearranged like 15, 18 years before for full traditional service and visitation the night before, as we all used to do, and then the complete service and the police escort to the cemetery. And Aunt Mildred lasted a long time, outlasted everybody but her niece, who was then the healthcare power of attorney and designated next of kin. And she told us, you know, Aunt Mildred has put us through so much.
Millie.
You just cremate her and send us the refund. We're going on a cruise. And they did. Funeral planning declaration would prevent that. Now, you can always, as we talked about before, you can always come back in and change. So what I did on my funeral planning declaration 10 years ago may have changed. I may have remarried. I may have relocated. There are all kinds of things that have changed. You can change your pre-arrangements. So that's something else to keep in mind. I'm sorry to go off on that tangent.
But what you said though is the healthcare power of attorney. Wait, the healthcare power of attorney can last past death.
The newer version. Go ahead.
Oh. He's dying over here.
I just want to make sure.
The dance.
So, healthcare power of attorney, that is being phased out.
Got it.
If you have a healthcare power of attorney, you're grandfathered in, but that's where I'm telling you really need to look at updating. Everything, all these powers are now housed in a different area of the statute, and the official term is healthcare representative.
Got it.
And the healthcare representative, if it's in the document, or I guess I shouldn't say that, the healthcare representative does have the authority, unless it's otherwise not given in a document, to handle funeral arrangements and disposition of remains.
And then there is
took place July of 2021.
Yeah.
Yep.
July.
Yeah.
July 2021. And then the funeral arrangements, there is a special document that you can say, this is my plan and you're not changing it, you're going to implement this.
Funeral planning declaration, yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Okay, so there is an exception, but it's not actually called a power of attorney. Healthcare
It's now
representative.
healthcare representative, yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to add something. My oldest sister passed away unexpectedly last year, and did not have things in order. And her husband had already passed away prior to her. They had property, a decent amount of money, and lots of cars. It was a fiasco. And her 3 daughters, who all lived in different states, trying to get this all figured out and done. And they literally really don't even speak to each other now because of it, because it was such a situation, and everybody kind of fighting over who was in charge. And I mean, it's really kind of a sad situation, and it just proves how important it is to get that done prior. And we did not expect that at all. No indications. It was very sudden, so you just don't know. So I just think it is, like you said, like today, like it needs to be done.
Weddings and funerals, they bring out the worst in people, right?
And
Isn't that what they say?
it's just, it's still going on. And it happened last April, so it's still not settled completely.
In the past, we've called this, this panel topic, leaving a legacy, or, something along those lines. I tried to jazz it up a little bit this year because I wanted people to come back who have already seen it. And plus, it's a party, a funeral planner, 2 attorneys, and a CPA, and a realtor, hey.
And then what happened? What did they do?
They went into a bar.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
They went into or walked into a bar?
They walked into a bar.
Well, they may have walked into the bar. I ducked.
Wow.
Sorry, I was trying to set you up.
Samantha, I'm sorry.
You gotta laugh if you want your bonus.
So I guess my point was, I watched it personally. It was horrible, and it still is. And it's like I tell them all the time that my sister's going to haunt them all if they don't get this right, because it is ridiculous. Because the last thing anybody wants is to think that after you're gone, your family is fighting and speaking to each other all over something that you could have handled. And not saying that they still wouldn't have some issues, but the majority of it would already be handled. There'd be no question. Done.
Yeah. And I think one of our first sessions was called The Perfect Gift, where we had Sarah Kendrick with REA Services, R-E-A, or R-H-E-A. It's an acronym, and I don't know it. But anyway, I actually had her do a booklet. She makes and she puts it on a drive for you, and you can print it out and put it in a binder. But it's like all of this important information, all of your plans. You can put your will in there. You can put everything in this binder and then put it someplace in a safe, just so long as somebody knows where it is. But it was very, very detailed. You can even mention your pets and your just whatever you want in there, so that the person coming along to organize everything once you pass, they have an instruction manual that you've created. So it's like your last chance on this earth to have some control over something. So, all right, any questions? We covered a lot there. Yes, ma'am?
I guess it's for the attorneys. I went to a talk once about tips for preventing identity theft, and one of the things they said was to freeze my social security number. So I did. Is that going to create like some nightmare for my heirs? I don't need it. I'm not working or retired, so I don't know why I would use my social security number.
The question was about freezing her social security number.
I don't.
It's easy to do. You just get online and do it.
So nobody
the
can
Social Security, because I myself for years have put a fraud alert on my credit reports, which requires anytime that I want to take out credit, the company should be calling this number, calling my cell phone and say, hey Jeff, are you really standing with this person trying to open a credit card or a credit account? I think that's very valuable, because that does, if somebody steals your credit card, or say different, somebody steals your Social Security or your other forms of identification, they can't just walk into the local Best Buy and open up a credit account and take a bunch of stuff. So I've done that for years. It's kind of a pain sometimes because forgot to change my phone number once and they're calling this old number, but in general, I think that's a great idea. I think same thing. There's no use for your social security number once you're gone. I mean, it's always a means of identification. It's on the death certificate. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
Unless maybe, I don't know what the purpose of that would be, unless maybe it is to prevent a bank from opening a new bank account using your social security
like
number. That's the
identity
only thing I
theft
can
or
think, but I don't know if that is what that does or not.
I mean, we also have a panel coming up about fraud, and with fraud being so prevalent, I mean, you can never be so safe. Last week, actually, I have my dog's pet food through Chewy, which is it's on an auto ship, and it's an online thing, and they send you your food right to your door. They hacked into my account and bought like $100 worth of dog food and had it shipped to California. And, fraud is everywhere. So I don't think that you can be too safe. So I just looked at the time, and I know we started a little bit early, but it's already 20 after. So about who can I contact first? Where should I keep my plans? We can kind of wrap these last three. Where should I keep my plans and who should know about them? Alternative ways to pay for end-of-life planning, and the best piece of advice that you can leave our audience with.
All at once.
Yeah, all that. Go ahead. You're on, Miranda.
All right, so your plans should be kept in a safe place, where ideally for your will at least, because somebody needs to lay hand of the original will if the will needs to go through the formal probate process. So the original. So that needs to be in a safe deposit box at a bank, or they have containers that they say are fireproof and waterproof, or a safe that's fireproof and waterproof ideally. I was able to find one on Amazon that's just it's a fold over thing that says that it meets those specifications. I'm going to test it out soon, see if it works. Somebody should know where your documents are, so that if you're in the hospital and something goes wrong and you're not competent anymore, somebody knows where to find the document so that they can actually do the things they need to do to take care of you. And likewise, when you pass away, somebody needs to know where your documents are. Your attorney or your financial advisor can help, or your CPA can help you figure out how you should set that up. So if you come to me and you have cryptocurrency, I'm going to tell you a different way to store the information that leads someone to be able to access your cryptocurrency, because you don't want to release that to tell someone where that is while you're still alive, because all they need is the cryptocurrency code in order to access your funds. So it depends, but an attorney or any other professional that helps you with your financial decisions can walk you through that. How to pre-plan for end of life, various different ways. Since we're short on time, I'll just tell you that talk to an attorney, a financial advisor, a CPA who is knowledgeable about those things, and ask them, start with asking them, what do you recommend? Who do you recommend I talk to? What resources do you have to direct me to? And if they're not giving you the answers that you feel like you need, then talk to somebody else in your pool of people, or reach out to other people to say, who have you used that has helped you? The last piece of advice is elder law attorneys are one of the most non-scary types of attorneys that you can talk to. I don't know why that is, but we tend to just have like a laid-back kind of way that we want to talk to people. So it's not a scary, hopefully it's not a scary thing to talk to us. We like talking, and we like telling people about this, because so many people don't know what types of planning options are available. So if you have questions, pick up the phone and call someone who can help you get started. So you just need to gather information to begin with, and then you can decide if you want to do something with that or not.
There you go. Okay. So just to recap, where should I keep my plans, and who should know about them? Are there alternative ways to pay for end-of-life planning? And then your best piece of advice.
Okay.
It's tall order.
Yeah, the people that are responsible to deal with things in your place, those people need to know where your documents are. And they shouldn't be surprised that you've tasked them with some responsibilities that you're no longer capable of dealing with. You know, you shouldn't shock somebody with, oh, by the way, you're my power of attorney.
That'd be a red flag if
Haven't seen you for 18 years?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll be your power of attorney. But the people that have responsibilities need to know where those documents are. Bank safe deposit box is probably not your best option, particularly for wills. Because if I understand my Indiana law correctly, when you die, your safety deposit box gets locked.
Unless you sign a form.
Okay.
Yeah.
So.
Yep.
Sign that form.
Let's sign a form.
So.
What kind of form?
Yeah.
Sorry. So an attorney who's helping you with your estate plan should be able to walk you through this. But there is a form that you can sign with your blank that allows someone else to be able to access that safe deposit box after you pass away. So if I have a client who's going to put it in a safe deposit box, I must make sure. Sorry.
That's why we have lawyers. So, but again, people that have responsibilities need to know where the documents are.
Alternative ways
what's
to
the rest of
pay.
my list?
Yeah. Alternative ways to pay for end-of-life planning.
You know, there are a number of ways you can have money set aside in a trust. A particular item that my wife and I have done is we bought a substantial life insurance policy that builds cash value so that in case we do have to go to a nursing home, we have a source of revenue to pay for our nursing home. And if we don't have to go to the nursing home, then we haven't spent tens of thousands of dollars on long-term care insurance policy that I didn't get any benefit from other than maybe a small tax deduction. What else is on my list?
Oh, and then your best piece of advice. Wait, did you have a question? Oh, okay, sorry.
My best piece of advice is again, get your plan in place and get it in place as soon as you can because things happen and you didn't always plan on them. And my wife has 8 siblings, the youngest of which who passed away last July. He was 54 years old at the time he passed. He had been in declining health, but wasn't expected necessarily to pass when he did. I have been on him for quite some time since he had a work injury that created some brain damage. I have been after him for years and years and years to get documents in place because, Michael, your health's not great and we don't know what's going to happen with you. Yeah. Well, he didn't want to spend the money. Talk to an attorney to get a will and get a couple of other documents. Well, he died. And unbeknownst to his wife, she doesn't own the house. He owned the house. They have 2 teenage children. So guess who owns the house now? The wife owns half of it. And each of the teenage children own a quarter of it. So now every time that she wants to do something with the house, she has to go talk to her children's attorneys. And her attorney. They have to agree to spend the money to maintain the house. So while my brother-in-law saved $500 having a will prepared, I don't know how many thousands of dollars he's caused his wife to have to spend to deal with daily issues of owning a home. Not to mention the aggravation and frustration of having to schedule a meeting with, 3 attorneys.
Yeah.
Go to the meeting and through that process. So get your documents in place. It may cost you some money now, but it will save so much aggravation and stress on those that survive you, with those that have to take care of you if you happen to become incapacitated but don't die. Don't put that burden on other people. You know what you want done, you know who you want to take care of you, and you know how you want it to be done. Take the time to put the documents in place to see that that's taken care of.
Thank you. Well, first of all, as far as who do I call, I want to thank Lisa for putting this group together, and we're honored to be a part of it.
Yeah.
Because I think this is a great resource team, knowing these people and getting to know these people, that they're conscientious professionals that can give you good advice and at very, very fair rates. As far as how do you select, talk to one of them, talk to your friends. Have you ever used this funeral home or that funeral home? Years ago, and it's becoming less and less wise here, oh, well, we've always gone there. Our family's always gone to that funeral home. But we're a much more mobile society, and we've moved around, and things have changed, and ownership of funeral homes have changed. And you can talk to somebody that's recently used that funeral home. But I really encourage you to research it, because the difference in prices for the very same services, end-of-life services, just within a 5-mile radius of us right now, varies by $5,000 to $10,000 for service, and it's for the very same thing. So I'm going to encourage you to research it. As far as where do you put your records and the funeral home is supposed to, we do, retain your entire pre-arrangement file, but we would recommend you keep a copy of it, and your next of kin keeps a copy of it so that they can refer to it. Now, got great legal advice on both sides of me here, and I would, if you might even have your attorney have those plans in their files as well, of your files in their possession. So thanks again for including us.
Yeah.
Keep in mind that your plan is more than just documents. So I always break it down into who's your team. That's the first thing you're doing with your planning. You're identifying who's going to step up and do things for me if there's a crisis or I just need help. 2, what legal authority does that team need? That's where the documents come in. And 3, what instructions do those folks need? Lisa mentioned Sarah Kendrick, and she has these instructions. I have a little kind of booklet for people to fill out, because having the authority and knowing what to do with that authority are 2 different things. So all of those things are components of your plan. So you want to make sure that your team knows where all those components are stored. 95% of my clients store their original documents with me in my safe, and we have an agreement on when I release those to somebody else already in place. So when that occasion arises, we know what to do there. If you don't store them with your attorney, you keep them at home somewhere, it doesn't matter. Just make sure your team knows where to find it. Now, yeah, you want to make sure it's fireproof and waterproof. If you're going to dump one of them in the fire, can you record it? Because I want to see what happens.
I might do it this weekend.
So you just want to make sure that your team knows where to find these things when there's a crisis. I usually tell folks, if you're storing them with me, give them my card, give them a copy of the agreement, give them copies of the documents if you want, but just make sure they know where to find them. Trying to think through the last questions here. Alternatives. Alternatives.
Okay.
I'll just say alternatives to affording long-term care. There's so many options out there. If you're in a crisis, you've done no planning, probably we're going to look at Medicaid or VA pension. Those are the 2 biggies that Miranda and I are going to work with. Those are both public benefits programs to help pay for long-term care. It's never too late to access those programs, and you never have, well, yeah, you could have too much, but you never want to just think, I got to spend everything in order to access it. There's things that we can do. If you start earlier in your planning, you can look at things like insurance products. Ken brought up a good product here, because there's so many options now in the long-term care insurance industry. It used to be all use it or lose it. Now there's different, you mentioned basically a life insurance chassis that has that attached to it. So there's different options there for you. I think I'll leave you with several pieces of advice, but I think the big thing is, as we're talking here, I just wanted to say we've talked a lot about The nursing home. Keep in mind, there are alternatives to nursing home care. There's home care, there's adult daycare, there's assisted living. These folks over here, they can talk to you about those alternatives, and we can often connect some of these public benefit programs to those alternatives. We're very fortunate to have a Medicaid program in the state of Indiana that will pay for things other than nursing home care, which isn't the way it was when I first started 20-something years ago. We had an institutional bias. If you wanted help from Medicaid, sorry, you got to go to the nursing home. Now there's lots and lots of alternatives out there.
Okay, that was a lot of information. Okay, so I'm going to check one last time for questions. Yes, ma'am, Sue?
So I'm gonna guess this is going to go to our CPA person. My brother recently passed away, and I've been going through his papers, which, people, get organized. I find no tax, he just died in New Mexico.
Okay.
But I find no tax forms that he filed that, so who do I contact to say, okay, I was a power of attorney, obviously I'm not anymore. Just make sure that
Who's the personal representative?
he did not make one, of course, nor will.
Okay, so in New Mexico, who's going to be responsible to administer his estate?
At this point, I did talk to an attorney before I left yesterday, that I need to go through probate because he had under $50,000 of assets. So I just have to do paperwork, I guess, and file it.
Say under 50,000? Well, in Indiana, if you have under $50,000, I believe you can just file an affidavit with the court that says I have less than $50,000 and you're done.
Not the court, but there's an affidavit that is a substitute for.
I don't know what, I'm not familiar with New Mexico. If he has less than $50,000, he probably hasn't been required to file a federal return.
That's what I
Which is
wondered
may not be,
also, or
which
state,
may,
yeah.
again, I don't know what the new
But who do I call, I guess, once I
If you don't have any authority, somebody who has authority to act on behalf of the estate is going to need to file a Form 2848 with the Internal Revenue Service.
that's after I do the probate.
Correct.
You have to have authority.
That's after you've been given authority to act on behalf of the estate. You need to file a Form 2848 with the Internal Revenue Service. That's the Internal Revenue Service Power of Attorney form.
Okay.
You can fax that in. The fax number you can get from the IRS website, or you can mail it in. If you fax it in, it normally takes them about 3 weeks to get it into the file. If you mail it in, sometimes it takes them 90 days.
Wow.
Well, I still have to do the personal representative thing,
So
it's tough.
once that power of attorney's on file, you can go in and you can actually access the decedent's tax file and get transcripts of returns.
There you go.
Now, I don't know what the process is with New Mexico.
Right.
You would have to go through the same process with the state of Indiana. If you lived in Indiana, you would have to get an Indiana tax power of authority or power of attorney, send it to the state of Indiana, and then I don't know if you can actually access things online with the state of Indiana. You may have to ask them to dig into their archives and send copies. But I don't know about New Mexico, but good luck.
So this is just one person with assets under 50,000, and you can hear, what he's left his loved ones with. So make a plan, and revisit it annually. Okay, so we're gonna give away some door prizes, and before we do that, we put the feedback link in the chat for Zoom, and if you'd give us some feedback, we'd appreciate that. We do take a look at those every month. Make sure you RSVP using that Google number. A lot of you did that. It's just a voicemail, but we check it before the event, or you can go to downsizingindy.com and fill out the form, and that's the best way for us, but the voicemail works too. And invite others, of course. We are going to outgrow this room, I suspect, soon, and that'd be a good problem to have to give you a new address because we've outgrown this room. But if we do, don't worry. There are lots of rooms in this office park that we can rent out, so we fit. All right, so Stacey Bunez with ClearCaptions is one of our in-kind sponsors, and every month she makes this great basket. She hand makes them and brings them by. She was here last night as I was setting the room up. And the winner is Sue Dane. There you go, for all of your troubles with your brother. There you go.
Yes. I just flew in last night at 2 o'clock.
Oh, gosh. So, yeah, so she's traveling back and forth to New Mexico to try to settle. It's your brother's? Okay, Michael Mackey. There you go. You win a rose. A rose, yeah. And these are from Eagledale Florist. Actually, we have. You're just Tiffany's mom to me. Brenda, yes. These flowers, if you give it to somebody or keep it in your house, they last forever. I don't know where they get them or what they do to them, but they're just really amazing. Yeah? Yeah? And they made a lot of moms happy this past Mother's Day with flowers. I'll give away a couple more flowers. Ann Fetcher. Where's Anna? I got your message yesterday. Good to see you guys. And then Phil, you can have the flower on your table there. And Sandy Farrell. Here you are. I think that is it, right? I think that's it. Okay, so again, thank you to our sponsors and our panelists. This is one of my favorite topics. Please come by and talk to the sponsors. They've got educational information over there for you guys. And of course, talk to our panelists. If you want to contact them directly, all their information is on the back of the questions and in the packet that you have. And if you're online, it's in the Google Drive link that we shared with you. And that is all. We will see you in June. I was like, what month is this? We'll see you in June. One of these days, we're going to have a month where we have no technical issues.